to hit $80,000 months, you cannot be in the weeds on every task in your business. You cannot touch every client anymore. You are going to have to pull back and rely on a team. Welcome to Profit and Prosper, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are ready to make some money while doing what they love. On this podcast, we're going to pull back the curtain and talk about all things business and money, but I promise you this is not your typical boring numbers talk. I'm your host, Sarah Young, a CPA and CFO with over a decade of experience in finance, business, and leadership. I'm going to share everything I've learned from helping my clients grow more profitable businesses and keep more of what they earn while growing my own successful business along the way. You'll feel empowered and confident that you too can grow your wealth, live a rich life, and have an impact. Stick with me and you might even start to think that finance is fun. Let's dive in. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Profit and Prosper podcast. We are on episode 54. And in this episode, I'm going to run through some example of business models, structures that I would put into place if I wanted to be able to pay myself a salary of $50K, $100K, and $300K per year. So this episode was inspired by a couple of social media posts I've seen over the last few months that I just bookmarked because I thought they just got my gears turning in my brain. One of them was a Monty Woodard post. If you don't follow him on social media, we'll link it in the show notes, but he is a content marketing strategist. And he did a post that said $100,000 in sales, $100,000 in profit, and $100,000 in pay are all three entirely different ministries. Then another post that I saw was by Stephanie Ann Hewson, I think is how you say her name. Her handle is It's XOGNG. She's a business coach. She did a post where she said how she would structure her sales. Her clients are coaches, how she would structure her coaching business sales to hit, certain sales, monthly sales thresholds. And that just inspired me to do this episode of how I would structure different business models overall, how I would make the numbers work to be able to pay yourself $50,000, $100,000, and $300,000 in sales. And so I think this episode is going to be fun. To me, it's fun because I'm going to go through some numbers. If you're listening and you're like, going through numbers sounds miserable, don't turn it off. Don't turn it off. I'm going to do the numbers for you. And if we get to the part and I'm going through the details of the numbers and you're like, you need to slow it down. You need to go into your podcast player and slow it down a bit. No one's judging you. We all understand. Okay. So ultimately, one of the things that I talk about is why it's so important to pay yourself. And I want, for all of my clients, I want them to get to a place where they can comfortably pay themselves $100,000 or more in a paycheck, having a six-figure paycheck. And especially from women business owners, I hear the pushback in many cases of either, well, I don't really need to pay myself $100K a year, especially those of you who have partners who are employed, they have a corporate job, and maybe they have a steady paycheck, they cover all the bills with their paycheck, and they have a 401k, and they're taking care of healthcare. And so you're like, well, I don't need to make a ton because what would I do with it? I have so many things, so many ideas of what you could do with it. I want you to really step back and hear yourself when you have that doubt about, I don't really need this. When you're trying to keep yourself small, I really want you to imagine what would a six-figure paycheck do in your business or do in your life, not in your business, in your life. What if, it enabled you to get some extra help around the house, to fund your kids' education, to set up your own retirement contributions so that you don't have to rely on anybody else's retirement accounts, which we all need to be financially independent, in my opinion. How seriously would your business be taken in your household if you made $100,000 or more? How seriously would it be taken? It would not be a hobby. It would not be a side gig. It wouldn't be this unimportant thing. It would be like, go forth and grow that business and make even more money, honey. Like, let's do this thing. Okay. Also, I'm just coming off of re-recording my free mini course where I also talked about this. So I'm like ready to go. I got myself fired up about a six-figure paycheck and how crucial it is. So I have a free mini course where I talk about how to grow your team, grow your business, and turn your six-figure sales into seven-figure wealth. You can go and sign up for the free mini course. It's 2 days at millionaireceo.co/mini course. So anyways, I literally just got off of re-recording those. They've been running for a few months now. And I just have enrolled more clients into my incubator and into my CFO programs. And so I just wanted to refresh those. And so like I said, I got myself kind of worked up about why being able to pay yourself is so important for your life. So here's some stats. Out of all women business owners in the United States, according to the National Women's Business Council, this is like a government entity. They take Census Bureau data and Bureau of Labor Statistics data and compile reports on the state of women's businesses in the United States. Only 12% of women business owners make more than $100,000 in sales, and only 2% make $1 million or more. So if only 12% are making 100K or more, I can guarantee you that something like 5% are profiting or paying themselves a six-figure paycheck. So really stop and think about that. Do you put all of this effort into your business to pay yourself peanuts? I don't think you do. So the median U.S. household income in 2021 was $70,000 according to the census. We also know how much things have increased in cost over the last few years. The number of Americans that have enough savings to cover an unexpected bill, it's like only 44% have enough savings to pay for an unexpected $1,000 bill. Then we look at retirement. The median income for adults 65 and over is $47,000. That's pre-tax. So once you take taxes out, and then once you pay for medical bills, this is why so many people are, in old age, why they live on a tight budget. And a lot of older people live in poverty, which in my opinion, we need to change this. If you are able to pay yourself a $100,000 paycheck, not only can you make sure that you are not part of these statistics, you also have the freedom, the independence, and the power to impact these other things that matter in the world. So let's talk about the different business models of what it looks like to pay yourself $50,000, $100,000, and $300,000. But first, I want to define sales, pay, and profit because a lot of people get these things mixed up. I actually have a post where I was on my Instagram where I was talking about building seven-figure wealth. And somebody commented on it but do you actually generate consistent seven figures? If you don't, then you shouldn't be talking about this. And I was like, you're mixing up sales and wealth. I'm not talking about seven figures in sales. I'm talking about seven figures in wealth, and they're not the same thing. Sales, pay, profit, and wealth are all wildly different things. And people always assume when we're talking about these numbers, they default to sales. So let me define these things for you. And then we're going to talk about the business models. Sales is obvious. Well, maybe not actually, because sometimes different people, when you see people talking about sales on social media, they refer to sales in different ways. In my opinion, sales, when you hear me talk about sales numbers, I am talking about cash received. So cash that people pay you to do stuff for them. A lot of people, when they're talking about launches, for example, when they're talking about, these amazing months, unless they're specifically saying I had this much cash come into my business this month, a lot of them are telling you the booked revenue. Meaning, if they have a program and they did a launch of the program, how many people signed up times the sales price, even if they haven't gotten the cash in the door yet, even if that cash is going to come, trickling in over the following months. So I think that's misleading because people don't talk about with these huge sales numbers, how much goes in for expenses, how much they had to pay to hit that launch number, and then how many people default on their payment plans, right? So they're not telling you these things. They don't come back 6 months later and say, how I told you I had a 100K launch, it really ended up only being 70K spread out over a year. No one tells you that. So when I'm talking about sales, I'm talking about cash received in the door because cash is king. Let's be real. Profit is how much you have left after you pay all of your business expenses. So you've heard me in the past talk about gross profit, which is if you take your sales minus the cost of sales, so delivery of your product or service would be cost of sales, is gross profit. For purposes of this episode, I'm actually talking about net profit. So that is sales minus all your cost of sales, minus all of your business expenses is your profit. That's what's left over. Now, most business owners think that profit comes before pay. They don't stop and realize that if their business does not have the money to pay the CEO, them, a market salary consistently on a regular basis, they don't realize that they don't have an unprofitable business. Think about it. If you think about any big company out there, would the CEO keep showing up and doing the things that they do if they weren't getting paid or if they were getting paid way below market? No, they wouldn't. So your business needs to be able to pay you, the CEO, a market rate salary for the things that you're doing in your business. Otherwise, it's not profitable. Are you ready to create a profitable business and use that cash flow as a fire starter for building your wealth? Since you're listening to my podcast, I'm guessing that you probably do, but maybe you aren't sure exactly how this would work for your business or if it's even possible for you. But listen, I am here to tell you that it is possible because I have worked with so many women business owners who have done exactly that. You can pay yourself a six-figure CEO salary and get yourself out of the feast or famine cycle where you're worrying about cash flow all the time. You can create a profitable business model that allows you to outsource and delegate so you can take time off from your business while still growing to the next level. And you can use that cash flow to start building a seven-figure portfolio of retirement, real estate, or whatever else you're interested in. If you're an established online or service-based business owner who'd like some hands-on CFO support to increase your profit margins, build your business to the next level, and grow your net worth using that extra cash flow, then the Millionaire CEO Incubator is exactly for you. The Millionaire CEO Incubator is my signature 6-month group coaching and done-with-you hybrid program to help you map out and implement a plan to turn six-figure cash flow into seven-figure wealth. We take on a handful of new clients each month by application. So if you're ready to change your money story, go to profitandprosper.co/apply or the link in the show notes and fill out the quick application. It should take no more than 2 minutes and we'll be in touch. Now let's get back to the episode. When we think about profit, I really want you to think about your CEO salary coming out as a business expense, which if you have an S Corp, it's probably, partially already coming out. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but I want you to think about your CEO pay coming out as a business expense, and then profit is what's left after that. So paying yourself before the profit. Then as the business owner, you also have the right to profit distribution. So taking some of that profit, you can either leave it in the business to build up your cash cushion to save for investments, or you can take it out and pay yourself profit distributions too. So those are the different things: sales, pay, and profit. And then I also mentioned wealth. So when I talk about wealth or investments, I mean the value of assets, personal assets that you have. So the assets that you may have, an asset is just something that has value that will bring you cash flow in the future. That could be retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, real estate, cash and savings accounts, that counts too. Even your business can be an asset if it's profitable, if it's one where you could turn around and sell it, that can also be counted as an asset. I certainly count it when I think about my net worth because I could sell my business for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So wealth is from taking some of your pay in your profits and investing them into assets to build wealth. So those are the differences between those things. Let's talk about some numbers. What I would do to pay myself $50K, $100K, and $300K. So I have come up with 3 example business models of what do your sales need to look like, how much do you have for expenses, how much is going to tax, and how much should you have left in profit if you had an ideal, profitable, sustainable business model to be able to take home each of those 3 different paychecks. And as I'm recording this, I'm realizing maybe at some point I need to turn this into a YouTube video so you can actually see these numbers on screen. So maybe we'll make that happen if you guys like this episode. Let's start with the $50,000 paycheck business model. For each of these business models, I'm going to give you sales, expenses, taxes, and profit. So your sales is your inflow, and then your 4 outflows would be expenses, taxes, profit, and owner pay. For simplicity, I'm going to go with a service-based business. If you have a product-based business where you have a cost of a product every time you make a sale, so your gross profit is probably going to be like 50 to 60% of your sales, I want you to think of the sales number that I'm saying as gross profit. So you need to bring in this much in gross profit to cover overhead expenses, taxes, and profit. So for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to go with the service-based business that doesn't have that same business model. To get a $50,000 paycheck, my business model example is we're going to make $100,000 in sales. Out of that 100K, we are going to allocate that 100K as follows. We have $30,000 in expenses, that is 30%, $15,000 in taxes, $5,000 in profit, and that leaves us with $50,000 of owner pay. This is pay after tax, thankfully. Those percentages actually line up with the profit first recommended percentages. I think at 100K, they work fairly well. So I'm just going to roll with it for this example. Now let's start with 100K sales. I have a whole podcast episode about why I think that 250K sales is the new 100,000, because I think in my experience, being in that 8 to 10 to 12K month revenue range is actually quite difficult to maintain. But for the sake of argument, let's say you're at 100K sales and you want it to be sustainable. To make this happen, I would go very high ticket. I would keep a small client base and probably layer in some highly profitable things like VIP days. So 100K sales is $8,000 a month. So hypothetically, if you could come up with an offer that gave you 3 retainer clients at, let's say, $2,000 each, I would make these retainer clients, what you're doing for them, I would make it as highly specialized and as similar as humanly possible to make it so that it is super easy for you to deliver those offers. So 3 retainers, if you're at $2,000 a piece, that gets you 6K in sales. I would do VIP days, potentially half or full day VIP day, maybe 1 to 2 of those at $1,000 to $2,000 each, and that gets you to your 8K per month in sales. To me, that feels about as sustainable as I can make a 8 to 10K month be. And the reason, go listen to that whole episode if you haven't listened to it yet. But, for more about why I think 100K sales is really hard to maintain. But part of it is because of your expenses. So if you're going to keep your expenses at $30,000 a year, that is $2,500 per month. In this business model, assuming I'm not going to invest a ton into growth, then I'm going to focus my priorities on payroll, on team payroll, because I believe that 100K sales level is hard to maintain while serving clients, while also doing sales and marketing, while also having time for CEO projects, without working, 60, 80 hours a week, having time to hang out with your family and take care of yourself. So I would focus on payroll. And because if you make your offers specialized and easy to deliver, you're going to have an easier time having team members that can help you out, who can fill in those roles for you. So out of my $2,500 a month, I would allocate it something like, maybe $1,500 a month for some sort of operational assistant, someone to help me deliver for my clients. So for me, an example would be if I had 3 CFO clients, it would be a bookkeeper to help me do the back end, bookkeeping and payroll stuff. I'd probably also look at a VA for maybe $750 a month, just to help me with some of the other sales and marketing pieces to make sure you stay out of that feast or famine cycle of when you're really busy with client work, you can't keep doing sales and marketing. So I'd probably hire a VA. And then with my remaining $250, that's going to be quickly eaten up by things like software and office supplies. So you can see how fast that $2,500 a month goes if that is your expense budget. So there's my 50K paycheck business model. $100,000 sales, a $30K budget for expenses, with $15,000 going to tax. That is 25% or so of the 100K sales minus 30K expenses. So 70K of taxable income. $15,000 would go to taxes. And then I'm leaving $5,000 of profit that I would use to build up my cash cushion. And then maybe also once I have a solid cash cushion, that's the money I would use to start making strategic investments to grow my business. That's just me. So there's model one. Now let's move on to the $100,000 paycheck business model. In my $100,000 business model, I have broken it down this way: $250,000 in sales, $100,000 to expenses, $35,000 to tax, and $15,000 to profit. On the profit number, I feel like that's about as low as I would be comfortable going. I would prefer your profit to be more like 10% of your sales. But when you're paying yourself $100,000, I have a suspicion that you will be able to save and invest some of that paycheck, which means that $15,000 profit can mostly stay in the business to fund, again, cash cushion investments, things like that. So let's look at sales first. $250,000 in sales is about $20K a month in sales. I'm going to round to $20K just for simplicity. So again, to the retainer model, I would go for 6 retainers at $2,000 a piece. That would be $12,000. If you could increase, maybe by the time you get to this $250K sales mark, you're, an expert enough, you're really good at what you're doing. Maybe you can increase that price. You get up to like $2,500, $3,000. That reduces the number of retainers that you have. But I think that it would be great to have a solid $12,000 or so coming in from those, retainers that are your bread and butter sort of offer. Then I would layer in one VIP retainer. So this would be your highest ticket offer that you have at probably $4,000 to $5,000 for, the sales price for that. So with all of your sort of standard retainer models, or offers, clients, whatever word I'm trying to say, you guys know what I'm talking about. You're going to have $16,000 to $17,000 coming in from that every month. Then we layer in, I love a good VIP day or, high ticket strategy session. If you do 2 of those at $1,000 to $2,000 a piece, you're going to hit that $20K sales goal. Now I realize I'm talking about retainers because I think that having that monthly recurring revenue is great to have, sustainable, consistent cash flow. Some of you don't have that sort of business where you can't do retainers. And so you can think about yours in terms of projects. So if I think a lot of you very likely have projects that could last for 2 to 3 months at a time. So let's say if the goal would be, $12,000, where I said 6 retainers at $2K each, that's $12,000 in sales. For you to take that $12K and say, how can I get $12K coming in every month from my projects? If they last 2 to 3 months, let's go with 3 months. Let's say you do a project, maybe you're doing a design or something, or a rebranding of somebody's business, whatever. Maybe that's a 3-month project. That would mean that each client that you have would need to pay you. Let's say you have 6 of them at a time. Maybe you can't do 6. Maybe you could do 3 at a time. That means they each need to pay you be about $4,000 per month of the engagement. Over 3 months, that's $12,000. So we talked about the $20K sales model. This is just a hypothetical model. Again, I'm going with, retainers, a high ticket offer, and then a highly profitable VIP day to hit that $20K monthly sales number as easily as possible. Let's look at our expenses. So we have $100,000 budgeted for expenses. I think that's about 40%. Yeah, 40% of your sales is going to expenses. So that is $8,000 per month that you have budgeted for overhead. And again, I'm going to focus on team because to deliver for all of those clients, I believe you are probably going to need team support. With $8,000 a month, you have budget. This is why I think $250 is easier than $100K, is because you have budget and you have room to pay yourself a good salary. So if we look at our team, I would look at maybe getting somebody to help you with operations, somebody who can really run independently, who has a higher level of expertise than just sort of an entry level or administrative operations assistant, maybe for around $60,000 or $5K a month. You might be able to get somebody full-time. It may be a part-time person depending on the industry you're in, but I would aim for maybe $60K. Let's allocate that. So that's $5,000 a month. I'd probably still keep an operations assistant, somebody to do the administrative stuff. So let's allocate $1,000 a month to them. I'd also do a VA, maybe for another $750 to $1,000. And then you're going to have marketing expense. So I think when you're small, when your business is smaller, a lot of your marketing is an investment of time. But as your business grows, I do think it becomes beneficial to start investing money into marketing. So I've allocated $1,000 a month, which is $12K a year. That is about 5% of your revenue. I think that is a pretty solid, reasonable marketing budget for that size of business. Okay, so let's say the full-time employee was $60K. The operations assistant is $12K for $1,000 a month. So that's $6,000 for those two team members. Let's say we take our VA and that's at $750. Your marketing is at $1,000. That leaves us with about $250 for software expense, which might be on the low side for a business of that size. And so you may have to play with taking some of the budget from the other areas to make sense. I'm not sure I would take it from the marketing budget though, because I do think it is worth your while to invest some money into marketing, whether it is in the form of social media support. Maybe some of that goes to your VA if they can help you with marketing. Maybe it's a copywriter, podcast producer, like somebody along those lines. I think it's beneficial to have somebody helping you keeping up with the marketing. So just to sort of revisit that one, we're at $250,000 in sales, $100,000 for expense, $35,000 to tax, $15,000 for profit, and you've got $100,000 to be your after-tax take-home paycheck. That's pretty solid, y'all. All right, the final model is a $300,000 paycheck. When we get up to the size of business that is going to pay you a $300,000 paycheck, it is going to vary a lot more widely. So the example I'm giving you is just a hypothetical example. Just know, I'm using $1 million in sales. You may, depending on the industry, depending on your offers, depending on how much you're paying your team, how many team members you have, like all sorts of different variables. When you have a smaller business, they don't impact you as much, but as you get into that 7-figure range, they impact you a lot more. So just know you may have to do 1.5 million to get your $300,000 paycheck. It just depends. So I'm going to still go through a hypothetical business model for $300,000 in pay. So I'm going to go with $1 million in sales. So you're going to be able to pay yourself under this structure 30% of your total sales coming in. That's really solid, in my opinion. We're going to allocate of that $1 million, $500,000 or 50% to expenses. I actually think that's a great expense budget. I see people, really profitable businesses will say at like 50 to 55% of sales would be a great target. Maybe 60%, again, depending on the business. So in this example, we're going to go with 500 to expense. Then we have a 6-figure tax bill at this point because you're highly profitable. So that is $125,000 going to tax. Now, when you have that high of a tax bill, I really strongly hope that you reach out to someone like me and my team where we have, tax people on staff who can help you figure out ways to pay less in taxes. But I'm just going to run with $125K for tax for purposes of this model. And that leaves us with $75,000 of profit. That is 7.5% of your sales that you would leave in the business, and you can take out $300,000 in pay. So now let's talk about $1 million in sales. I am currently in my business, we are at between $50,000 and $60,000 months. And by the end of the year, I plan to be at $80K months, but I'm not quite there yet. So I'm saying this from my experience working with 7-figure business owner clients, from seeing behind the curtain there. An $80,000 month is going to come from scale. You as the CEO, to hit $80,000 months, you cannot be in the weeds on every task in your business. You cannot touch every client anymore. You are going to have to pull back and rely on a team. You are probably also not going to get there on 1 or 2 offers. You're probably going to need to start stacking different types of income streams. So as an example, you could have a low, a medium, and a high ticket offer, which I think everybody should have those offers, as you've probably heard me say before. You could also have a VIP day or a project style, like short term. If you go the retainer model with low, medium, high, maybe you can do one-off sort of projects. And then you may want to also play with more of a scalable offer, like a group program or something along those lines. The point being, as I personally am mapping out my sales for 2023, I am stacking five. I've got 5 different offers that I'm stacking. And it's not like I just came up with all these offers overnight. They have been developed over the last 4 years of running my business. So to do $80,000 a month, you are going to need to sit down and do the math of, okay, how many can we handle at each of these different price points to get us to a place where we're consistently generating $100,000 a month. Now let's look at your expenses. $500,000 a year in expenses is $40,000 per month in overhead. For simplicity, I'm going to stick with the annual number of $500K. For a service-based business, you are going to need to prioritize, again, payroll. So I would allocate $350,000 per year, that's about a third of your sales, to payroll. And with $350,000, I literally pulled a spreadsheet together, and I won't go through every line item, but I've got 3 full-time employees ranging from $60K to $100K. I've got 2 part-timers at $18,000 a piece. I'm layering in payroll tax that ends up being about $25,000 a year. I'm layering in bonuses. I'm layering in benefits, and I'm layering in some contractors. So even with payroll tax, bonuses, and benefits, I was able to get 5 employees and contractors on this team. And I think that if you have highly profitable offers and your systems and processes are really good that enable you to deliver those offers, I think, based on my experience, I think this is reasonable. You could work with this, okay? I talked about this in the Profitable Teams episode. That was episode 53. But don't let the idea of hiring people and needing to pay payroll tax, bonuses, and benefits overwhelm you. You'd be surprised at how cost-effective it is and how it enables you to keep and retain good team members. So payroll's $350,000. I allocated $65,000 for marketing. That is 6.5% of sales. I think, again, you need to be spending probably at least that in marketing. I put $15,000 to software. So that's a little over $1,000 a month. For a business that size, I actually think, some of you, depending on the industry you're in, you may have more software costs. So I personally spend that probably in my normal administrative software. I also have on top of that tax software, some other things that we have to help make our team more efficient. So reporting software, other types of things that aren't even included in that budget. So you may need to tweak these. Like I said, these are just hypothetical examples. I'm also allocating $60,000 to office expense, whether that's office supplies, computer equipment, phones, all that stuff, and then another $10K for miscellaneous expenses. So you can see, I think, the scale of some of these expenses, right? The idea to some of you listening to this, I would spend $65,000 a year on marketing. That's more than, revenue for a lot of people, right? Don't let a fear of the numbers getting bigger hold you back from working to achieve this type of business model. So let's revisit that $300,000 paycheck business model. Would be, if you did $1 million in sales, you would need to work within $500,000 of an expense budget, probably heavily focused on payroll, followed by marketing. You'll have a $125,000 tax bill, again, if you don't work with anybody to help you reduce that down. And you'll have $75,000 left in profit, which you would be able to use to either build up your savings in your business or to make some additional investments on top of that $500,000 expense budget. So it was fun for me to put these hypothetical scenarios together. Obviously, they're hypothetical. You're not going to hit those exact numbers in your business. The whole point of why I wanted to do this is so that you can see what it takes to run a business that pays you all these different paycheck amounts and how different they are. Again, because when people talk about their sales, when they talk about their businesses, a lot of times they don't talk about how much it costs to, run a business of that size. how much they're spending on expenses. In a $250,000 business, that's $20K a month in sales. It would not surprise me to spend $100,000, six figures on overhead expenses alone. Okay. In a $1 million business, you're likely spending $500,000 a year in overhead expenses. Don't be overwhelmed just by the fact that the numbers are bigger. I think this is why we have support available to help you get comfortable with the cash flow models, with the profitability models of figuring out what can you afford, when can you afford it, how do we manage all of your financial systems on the back end to make it easier for this money to flow through. So that's all I've got for you in this episode. Don't forget, if you want to get my free mini course, it is going to go through the 6-figure paycheck business model in day 1. And then in day 2, the step-by-step process to increase your profits and hire your dream team. So go get into that mini course at millionaireceo.co/mini course. DM me on Instagram if you have any questions or thoughts about this episode. I want to know if it got the gears turning in your brain. I would love to hear your feedback. And I hope this was helpful to hear the different numbers broken down. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Now, I want you to go take some action. What's one thing you can do this week to create more profit in your business? Send me a DM on Instagram at YoungCoCFO and share your action item with me. If you have a question or topic you'd like me to dive into, or if you're feeling empowered about taking charge of your finances, let's continue the conversation. Go to profitandprosper.co to submit a question or topic for me to talk about on the show. And because we all profit and prosper better with friends, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe wherever you listen, and share the episode. Make sure you tag me at YoungCoCFO on Instagram so I can give you some love, and I'll see you in the next episode.